Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Finance with Avrin. In this video, I'm getting into the big picture of personal finance in America in regards to Americans' debt, spending, and saving currently. Yes, there's debt to tackle, but there are also plenty of opportunities to build your nest egg, boost your credit, and take control of your money. Starting off here with debt. Total household debt as of the fourth quarter of 2024 has reached $18.04 trillion, marking a $93 billion increase from the previous quarter and a $9.3 trillion rise since 2019. And let me break down the debt composition for you of that 18.04 trillion. So most of that is going towards, what do you think? Mortgages, where people are living. Mortgages, $13 trillion in debt in that regard, which a lot of people consider that as good debt. Me personally, I look at mortgages as more of the good debt. That's like some of the best kind of debt you can have. I know that sounds odd, but because your home is definitely an asset, and in the past, in the present, and probably in the future, where housing price is going, they trend upwards. And the next part of the debt composition belongs to auto loans. $1.66 trillion for that amount of auto loans, and that's been growing as well. A lot of people getting into debt because of the automobiles they drive, sometimes having automobiles that are more expensive than what they can afford and causing the monthly payments to be more than what they could afford or barely what they can afford, which means there's less room for people to save and invest. So that is definitely the issue right there, auto loans. And then next up after auto loans are student loans at 1.61 trillion. And then after that, we have credit card debt. Credit card balances went up $45 billion in the fourth quarter of 2024, reaching 1.21 trillion. So that is part of that $18.04 trillion household debt. And speaking of credit cards, around 11.35% of credit card debt is over 90 days delinquent. That's as of the fourth quarter of 2024, which is up 9.4% from the previous year. And with auto loans, there's a 4.8 delinquency rate of those. Overall delinquency in America, 3.6% of all household debt was delinquent. And the way you can take this information is as motivational. If you're in the situation, take it as motivation. If you're not in this situation, take it as motivation to not be in the situation. This is information that you can use to help better yourself and be better informed and educated. But also, I do have some tips for those of you that are in debt and find yourself in this crisis. One of the things you could do is prioritize high interest debt or small balances first. There's two different approaches of debt. Now, the reason, of course, behind prioritizing high interest debt is, of course, that's the debt that's gonna cost you the most. Credit card with 25% APR versus a credit card with 15% APR. Well, the one with the higher APR is gonna be charging you more in interest. So if you pay that off first, then you'll pay less interest. That's the gist overall of that. Now, small balances first. The reasoning behind that is typically because of the confidence boost that people get when they pay off something. So let's say you owe $2,000 on this credit card and then $500 on this other credit card. However, the interest rate on the $2,000 credit card is higher than the other one. Well, you can keep paying on that and you'll pay the minimum on the $500. However, you still got two credit cards out there lingering. Let's say you pay off the smaller balance credit card with the lower APR. Now you just have one credit card that you're in debt from. You get kind of like that boost of confidence, like, okay, well, that's out of the picture. I got that credit card out of the way, paid it off. I don't have to look at that statement anymore. I'm just getting one statement in to remind me of the debt that I'm in with credit cards or whatever kind of debt it is. So I don't know your personal situation, what would help you more, but I would say definitely look into both of these approaches and see which one would help you more. Would it be better for you just to concentrate on that high interest debt because of the amount that you have on that debt and the rate that is being charged with the interest? Or do you have you have debt kind of spread around in multiple areas, but you have like various balances and it's kind of getting hard to keep up with that? Or you need a little boost of confidence in regards to your debt situation. Maybe you want to go with the small balances. However, if you do have a lot of debt spread across in various areas, there's another way to tackle that, and that's through debt consolidation. So you could do this in various ways with, getting one big loan to pay off all the debt, and then you just have that one big loan that you're paying on. Or sometimes with credit cards, you could transfer your balance from, two or three, you could transfer your balance from some credit cards to another credit card. And typically sometimes they have like promotions going on where it's 0% interest for like the first 12 or 24 months for balance transfers. So however, one thing to look out for that is that typically they'll charge you a balance transfer fee up front pretty much. That will be like a certain percentage of the balance that you're transferring over. But a lot of times that can be better than the actual, interest rate that you're paying on those other cards over time. So you just kind of need to do the math on that and figure out what's best for you with that. And also making more money. That is definitely can solve a lot of problems. Looking for ways to boost your income is a smart way to get out of debt, because you could put that extra income to debt. If you're making it right now, getting by through with how much you're getting paid, consider if you had an extra, $100 a month, $200 a month, $500 a month, $5,000 a month, whatever it is, an extra something coming in every month or every week or something. That's money that you didn't have before that you didn't need to get by. So that's money that you could just put straight towards the debt. Just put it right towards the debt, or maybe save some. We'll talk about saving some in the video, but definitely having an extra boost of income every week, month, quarter, something can be a great benefit to helping you get out of debt. So there's various ways, of course, to boost income. I won't go on too long. I don't want this video to be too long, so I won't go on too much, but just look up like side hustles on YouTube. You're going to get a ton of videos. Yeah, there's various ways to boost side income, whether it be like, gig work through, freelancing, or through deliveries, or through services, or maybe, there's something you're passionate about that you can maybe see if you can monetize that, picking up another job, a part-time or PRN job, something like that, selling stuff around your house. You got a lot of stuff you don't need anymore. Look into selling it. You can look to selling that on the, Facebook Marketplace or eBay or some kind of secondhand store, local area, pawn shop in your area, something like that. So yeah, there's various ways to kind of boost your income, whether it be continuously or 1 or 2 times. Anything would definitely help to put towards that debt for sure. Now, let's move on to the next section in the video, and that is Americans spending. What's going on with spending in America? America's GDP, gross domestic product, is driven by consumer spending. That is like the main way our economy grows, is through Americans spending money. It's about 68% of our GDP belongs to consumer spending. So this is a big part of America's and how just finances are going in America overall and the growth. And consumer spending has slowed from that COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic peak. However, it's above pre-pandemic levels. And consumer spending is projected to increase by 3.1% in 2025. And one thing that consumers are doing is that they're increasingly prioritizing affordability and promotional periods, trying to find things on sale, trying to see what they can afford, changing brands, different ways to try to save some money here and there, because, inflation and the economic conditions, some people are definitely feeling the hit of that as far as the cost of living being high and wage growth being, kind of stagnant or not keeping up with the cost of living. And also there's data that over 30% of Americans are delaying major purchases like homes and cars due to economic uncertainties, including the tariff situation and inflation. So some people are just unsure. They don't want to get themselves in some kind of larger amount of debt like a home or an automobile, and just kind of waiting it out to kind of see where things are going. Maybe they have some job uncertainty with everything going on. Maybe it's just the cost of living has really just keeps continuously eating them up, hitting them. So there's various reasons why America's spending is still going on. However, it's still getting hit in some areas. And there's data out there stating that the wealthiest 10% of Americans are driving the bulk of consumer spending. So those are the households that are making at least $250,000 per year. So when you see the consumer spending data overall, that includes the top percent, people that are doing very well financially. And with that growing uncertainty, one article that I stumbled upon when I was doing some research is this one right here by McKinsey & Company. A great article if you're interested in finding out what's going on with consumer spending. First graph right here is stated that consumers felt optimistic in the first quarter of 2025 as the economy proved resilient. So there is some optimism going on, as well as, of course, that pessimism going on, and a mixed amount, just depending on probably, what's the headline for the day. Depends on whether somebody's optimistic or pessimistic about the economy. You never know. Even though with some of that optimism going on in the first quarter of 2025, you see right here on this graph that the consumers are planning to cut back spending across several areas, but not all in the discretionary categories. I just wanted to highlight this article on this website. I think it's great and the way the graphs are presented and the information. But yes, consumer spending is definitely important and one of the main aspects of personal finances in America. And when it comes to spending, yes, there are tips on spending as well, smarter ways to spend to help out your personal finances. One of the ways is, of course, budgeting. This is an area that, of course, isn't that fun to a lot of people. It does involve some work. However, once you get started doing it, it becomes almost pretty much a normal thing to be done. done. Some people don't need to budget. Some people budget with their mind. Some people need to budget on paper. Some people use apps. Whatever works for you, I would say is the best approach to go. Other ways for tips for spending is definitely prioritizing wants over needs. When you're thinking about spending money, why are you spending this money on something? Is this something you actually need, or is it something you want? Once you figure that out, then you can go the next route. Okay, well, how bad do I want this? What is this going to do in my life to improve it? Is this just something that's going to bring me a little spark or a moment of joy? Or is this something that's going to bring me joy for a while? That's a great way of looking at ways to see if something's worth spending. Definitely want to do a little research and see why are you wanting to buy something. That could be a great way to help your spending. Also looking into promotions and alternative brands, waiting for things to go on sale. Put it in your cart, on Amazon, and see if it's going to see where the price is going. I have like a few things in my cart right now, and you can click, when you click on your cart, there's like a little section that comes up that says, whether the price has been decreased or increased. And that could be often sometimes a signal to buy or not to buy. You kind of see the price movement. So yeah, there's various ways about promotions. There's different apps out there that give you cash back, or, just waiting for something to go on sale, or different ways to approach promotions for sure. And that's something definitely to look into. Also, alternative brands. That brand of, paper towel, or that brand of, certain seasoning or something you buy, is it really worth it? Is it, what are you paying for? A lot of times with the major brands, you're paying for their marketing budget. I mean, that's just really it. I mean, like the difference between some of these major brand products and some of the, we'll say store products, like the Walmart brand or the Target brand or the, Trader Joe's brand or whatever. Sometimes the difference is just basically the marketing. That's the way the price is. The margins are different because this company wants to make this much more on their price, whereas this company may say, oh, well, we don't need to make too much money on this product. We want to make money on it, of course, but we don't need to make that much on it. We'll make it through quantity instead of just bulking up the price, sell enough of it. So there's different ways to look about it. Sometimes, there is a difference with some of the more expensive brands than the not as known brands. Testing it out, doing some research, testing different brands out to see what you could change up in your pantry or in your refrigerator, in your closet or whatever, to help yourself financially. Also, another way to tackle spending is embracing a no buy movement. So this is something I've noticed been going on recently, where people are just doing this kind of challenge, so to speak, that says I'm not buying anything except for things that are, totally essential, like, food or gas, transportation or charging, whatever they need to do to get to, work and home and forth, and to live, food or food for their pets, things like that. Just basically only buying what you definitely need. And that depends on, your lifestyle, your situation, your family, things like that, and just not buying anything else. Maybe you want to set that for a week. Maybe you want to set it for a month, a quarter. Maybe you're feeling, up to the challenge a whole year. However, you'll definitely notice you're spending less if you embrace the buy movement and actually stick to it. And what you could do with that extra money, of course, that goes into either the first section of the video, paying down debt, or the next section, saving. Let's get into that. Americans saving. So yeah, this section right here of the video, there's definitely some windfalls, some areas of concern when it comes to saving, as well as some bright spots. The U.S. personal savings rate, which is the share of disposable personal income that households set aside, was at 4.6% in February 2025, which was up from 4.3% in January, but well below the COVID-19 pandemic era highs, which peaked at like 25% back in April 2020. And on Bankrate's 2025 survey, they found that 27% of Americans have less savings today than a year ago, down from 32% in 2024 and 39% in 2023. While just 30% increased their emergency savings buffers over the same period. Now, these mixed signals right here underline that many households remain financially fragile despite modest improvements. Speaking of that, 36% of U.S. adults have more credit card debt than emergency savings. And two of the issues behind the reason of the saving situation is the high cost of living and the stagnant wage growth, which is making it harder for people to save. It's somewhat hard to balance that when things are just costing you more, just day-to-day living. Bills increasing, food definitely increasing, the price of it, inflation, all that's growing. Meanwhile, wages kind of growing some there, but not going along with the cost of living, which means, you have less money to save, less money to invest. So that's definitely an area of concern right there. And also 40% of Americans would struggle to cover $1,000 emergency expense. So that's basically meaning right there, about 40% of Americans don't have enough and they're ready to reach, accounts like a checking or savings account, money market account to cover an expense, if it would come up $1,000. They would have to pay for it some other way, typically through credit cards or loans or some sort of debt, instead of just being able to cover it themselves. And in relation to that, nearly 27% of Americans have no savings at all. So just zero in a savings account or just no savings account at all. If you are having an issue with saving, it's also an issue with debt going on. And we're going to get into that in the tips for saving. One of the ways to save more money is to automate savings. So this makes it where you just pretty much don't even see the money that's going in your savings account. Just set it up however you get paid. You can set it up to where a percentage or an amount goes just straight into a savings account. Or with your checking account, typically most people get paid, in a checking account, or you can set it up in your checking account, every 2 weeks, every week, every month. Move, transfer $100, $200, $500, $50, whatever, to a savings account. Just make it automatic. Just pick a good day that lands, after you get paid maybe, or just a good day in a month that would work well with your financial situation, and just have it automatically transfer a certain amount over to a savings account. Automate savings. That's a great way to just have it happen. Now, also a tip for saving is to focus on paying off debt, because debt will keep you trapped and eat away at your savings either. So if you have a lot of debt going on, a lot of high interest debt, it doesn't even really matter if you're saving that much, because you're going to get to the point probably where you'll need to pull from your savings to pay off the debt. Now, I wouldn't say that you could just stop saving to pay off debt. I would still say, just try to put something over there, because tackling debt is definitely an issue you want to do. You want to do that, but it is nice still to have somewhat of an emergency savings account. However, if you just find it where you just cannot do it and you just need to work on that, tackling that debt, whatever works with your personal situation. Some people, they may feel a little bit better about their financial situation and themselves if they move a little over to their savings, even though if they have a lot of debt going on. Just having a little bit in their savings makes them feel better. A lot of finances, of course, comes down to the numbers. The numbers don't lie. And that's the great way, of course, approaching finances, just strictly by the numbers, the percentages, things like that. However, the psychology of finance is important as well. If you feel better about your finances, you often will do better with your finances. If you feel really down and depressed with your finances, that's going to create a mindset that's going to be harder for somebody to do better with their finances. What you think has a lot to do with what you do and what happens in your life. So however it works out with you in that situation, but definitely focus on paying off debt in some sense is going to be a great thing that will help with your savings. Also, reducing non-essential spending. That's the apparel, the clothing, the footwear, the jewelry, the vacations, the things that you don't necessarily need to live, that you're just kind of buying because whatever. Now, so this is an area where you can, look for promotions or sales, or, different brands, or embracing the no buy movement in this area. Maybe you just want to say, maybe you got a problem buying shoes or clothes or something. Make a no buy month of it. No shoe September, or minimalist May, or save timber September, or no spend November, debt free December, whatever. If you got to make a corny something name out of it that'll help you feel better about doing it, that's totally fine. If not, just list it. Okay, no eating out this week, this month, something, whatever. That could definitely help reduce non-essential spending. Also, utilizing high yield savings account is a way to help with your savings, because if you're going to have money sitting in an account, it would definitely be great for you to earn interest on that account, and not just the 0.1%, the 0.5%, 0.03% that big banks typically give for their savings account. No, I'm talking about HYSA's high yield savings accounts. If you're familiar with my channel, you've been around here, you know exactly what these are for sure. I make videos on these very often, and I actually do ranking videos every other month. I'll have links down in the description about these, so definitely check that out if you're unfamiliar or you want to do some research on high yield savings account. There's many out there paying around 4%, 3.5%, something that can definitely boost your savings with money that's sitting there. That's one of the ways to put your money to work for you while you're working, while you're sleeping, while you're whatever. So yeah, utilizing high yield savings accounts is definitely a great way to boost and help your savings. Also, just another tip for building savings is building that emergency savings fund. Just working at it, however you got to do it, with increasing your income, paying off your debt, building that emergency savings fund is one of the bedrocks of personal finance. You got that emergency savings fund sitting there in case something happens, or you can also build it up so much to where you can pull from it for vacations or for discretionary and non-discretionary spending. Just continuously building that foundation right there. Definitely a great way to move forward with your finances. And that's a wrap on my video of the state of personal finances in America in regards to debt, spending, and saving. If you learned something new, definitely hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more ways to help your money work harder for you, as well as money insights and personal finance education and information. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, take care.